Welcome to the Positive Thread Podcast. I'm Heather McConaughey, nutritionist and mindset coach, podcast host, and former registered nurse. I have a passion for empowering millennial women because, well, I'm the oldest of the millennials. Think of me like your big millennial sister. Every week, I'll bring you an interview, topic, or Q&A session that will inspire you to care for your body, mind, and soul. I believe that when women prioritize self-care, everyone wins. If that sounds good to you, you're in the right place. Are you ready? Let's start the show. Amanda, welcome to the podcast. I am so excited to have you on for this convo today.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be here.
Okay, so you have such a cool job title. I'm kind of obsessed with it. It's alcohol-free lifestyle expert and coach and mentor. You help women stop drinking and start manifesting a life beyond their wildest dreams. Like, that's just like hot stuff. Okay, so can you explain a little bit more in detail what it is you do, and then how did you get into that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I specifically work with women who are social drinkers who want to change their relationship with alcohol, because you know just as well as I do, being a non-drinker yourself, that even if you don't reach the level of physical or mental addiction to alcohol, drinking is so ingrained in our society that it can be something that's really difficult to give up, even if you don't have a physical addiction. So I really want to be a support system for that and also normalize the conversation of living alcohol free, because there is a big stigma behind it. And I just aim to be not only the permission slip, but the cheerleader who can help you through navigating some of those situations, holding yourself accountable, and also getting to some of the underlying beliefs and behaviors that alcohol is always there to cover up. And that's part of my journey. You know, if you would have asked me 5 years ago if I would be coaching on sobriety, I would have laughed, because who would ever even think that's something that they would end up doing? But about 5 years ago, I started getting really curious about what my life would look like if I quit drinking. And I really just had this sense that alcohol was holding me back in a way that I couldn't even fathom. And I was only drinking on the weekends, you know, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, kind of socialite drinking. And it still was carrying over. I mean, I was worthless on the weekends, first of all, but then it was carrying over into the week. Even when I wasn't physically hungover, I still felt like I was really dragging and that things just weren't firing on all cylinders in my brain. I didn't feel like I was really thinking at the capacity that I had the ability to. And so I started to ask the question, what would my life look like without alcohol? And of course, anytime you ask a question like that, you go to Google, and basically the result was you need to declare yourself an alcoholic, or you should just keep drinking, because those are the two paths. And if you can't figure out how to have a good relationship with alcohol, then you're a weirdo. You're going to be a social outcast. And so I did the thing that most of us have probably done if you've considered changing that relationship. And I took the quiz that helps you decide if you're an alcoholic or not. And the results came up as suspected. I'm not an alcoholic. And I just felt like I was in a really stuck place, because here the world was telling me, okay, either say you're an alcoholic, or just keep drinking. And neither of those seemed like favorable options. So I kind of took that as a cue to, you know, take the bull by the horns and start this journey on my own, and to start talking about it. And I was already a coach at that time, but I didn't really know, you know, I was kind of just broadly coaching about things. And it became really clear really fast that I wasn't the only one in this kind of awkward situation of not an alcoholic, not wanting to drink anymore. And people started turning up wanting me to offer them coaching on that specific topic. And because I had to map it for myself, literally step by step, I came up with this really unique sense of mindsets that needed to be shifted, and a process I really think is essential for anyone who's wanting to change that relationship, because it really requires a lot of self-inquiry and support and behavior change. And that's what I do now.
That's amazing. I love how you took something that had been your own personal project or an internal challenge, and you turned that into a way to help other people. And I always love that, you know, phrase, your mess becomes your message. And, you know, that's where I was with my body that had me start nutrition coaching. And I think when you have that personal experience underpinning the transformation you want to help make for your clients, you have so much empathy and compassion for what they're going through that it makes it so much more powerful to coach.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, having that experience gives me not only the street cred, but I kind of feel like this weird moral authority and dharmic authority to help other people, because it just wasn't something that was being talked about 4 or 5 years ago. There have been a lot more coaches surface that are ready to coach in this area, and it's become a prominent conversation thanks to so many, wonderful women like Holly Whitaker and Ruby Warrington who are out there writing books to change the narrative around alcohol and sobriety. But 4 years ago, there wasn't much out there that told you that you could do this and not be a social outcast. So I just really felt that it was something I had to do. I didn't really have an option.
So let's talk about the difference between what you do and like a 12-step program or rehab center, because I think this word sobriety is almost so loaded. Like sometimes now I will say to people, oh, like I'm sober, but then I'm like, wait, is sober implying that I'm like an alcoholic who doesn't drink, which is not the case for me. Like I just have chosen to eliminate alcohol because I realized that it gives no positive benefits to my life. So can you kind of unpack that a little bit for us? Like what's the difference? And like, what is that term sobriety versus alcohol free? Like how does that all work together, do you think?
Yeah, it's really interesting because although it would be great if we could just call ourselves whatever we wanted and no one would bother with it, the fact of the matter is sobriety has a brand, and that brand is 12 Steps Recovery, AA, alcoholism, right? And that's amazing because that's intended to create an insular community for that group so that they can feel safe and supported in their journey. And I wholeheartedly believe in that program for someone who it resonates with and for someone who needs it. But when you don't need that, it also becomes a deterrent. I looked at the option of going to 12 steps or entering into some of these more recovery-based coaching programs, and I felt like an outsider. I felt like, oh, I'm the boppy fun girl who just drinks a little too much. And it made me feel really awkward and, someone described it to me as other than. I didn't feel better than them, but I also didn't feel like I was part of that community. And so that was just another signal to me that if I didn't fit in with that brand, that if there wasn't a brand for me, then I had no place to go. And so some of the words that I use, kind of like you, instead of saying sober or sobriety, I say alcohol free, or I'll use the term elective sobriety because that signals to me that it was something I did by choice for myself. And there's just so many other ways to talk about it. But I think that alcohol free really resonates with a lot of people because it's no different than gluten free. It's just kind of like a movement and a lifestyle choice versus sobriety, which has come to equate with addiction and recovery.
Yeah, definitely. So I actually attended some online AA meetings this past winter after I made the decision to be alcohol free, basically Christmas of 2020. The last alcohol I've had was Christmas Eve, like half a glass of wine. And even that, I just was like, I don't even feel good from this, And so the next day I was like, I'm going to be alcohol free. And so I went to some of these online meetings. It was also still during COVID. So it was like a way to have community. And I'm going to these meetings. They're like hundreds of people. So I can just kind of hang back and watch and listen. And I'm like, I don't identify with these people, right? Like, I don't identify with their stories. I don't identify with like drinking 18 drinks or like passing out, blackout drunk somewhere, or like, I don't identify with those things, yet I want to be alcohol free. So I think it's so valuable what you're doing because I do feel like there is really a gap in the marketplace for this. Can you talk a little bit about how your life has changed over the past 5 years since quitting alcohol?
In every single way. But I will tell you, I have worked very hard and I've really done a lot of personal and spiritual transformation work. And I can promise you that the life that I'm living right now would 100% not be possible had I continued on the path of being a drinker. It just was completely debilitating me from connecting to, first of all, who I am at my authentic core. Once I got away from alcohol, I realized that a lot of the identities I had taken on in my life were a direct result of hiding from something that I was either uncomfortable with or ashamed of. And drinking just helped me to kind of bury that into the background. And it also helped me to stay stuck and play small in ways. Not only was I not able to think and process and interact with people at my full mental capacity, which is really misleading because a lot of us who are social drinkers have a very high intellectual capacity and are very high achievers. So what we are achieving while we're drinking is still pretty miraculous and impressive to the outside person. But when you know in your core that you are not achieving at your highest level, it starts to become really uncomfortable. So I just felt so uncomfortable in my skin. I really had lost a lot of my confidence. I felt like a fraud because I knew that I was meant for something bigger, but I couldn't quite grasp how to get at it, nor did I have the confidence to actually, pursue whatever that was. And as soon as I stopped drinking and started achieving and taking on normal life circumstances that I convinced myself that I needed alcohol for, my confidence skyrocketed and I became literally unstoppable. It took me a while to get to some of my goals, but I went from working a corporate career that was pretty soul-sucking. It wasn't satisfying. It wasn't intellectually or mentally stimulating. And it was something I was told like, oh, you should be happy with that. You have a great job. And I hated it. But I was never going to get the confidence to leave a stable job where I could kind of go through and tick the boxes had I not quit drinking. And now I have my own business. I run a very successful, abundant business, and I have a book deal to write a book in this next year. And that is something I wanted to do since second grade that I never would have gone after had I not gotten my life together in the way that being alcohol-free has allowed me to.
I think it's really crucial what you said, and I want to point it out to those of you who are listening, but you can be achieving great results and drinking, but it blinds you to your potential, right? Like there's something else available. And that's what I'm really excited to discover for my life. Even though I've drastically reduced the total amount that I've been drinking, I'd say over the past 2 years, I'm really excited to now see what's possible from zero alcohol.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the way that I explain it is that you actually tap into this kind of metaphysical energy when you quit drinking, because the energy behind alcohol is, even if you're not literally telling yourself this, you are metaphorically telling yourself when you drink that you're not enough, that you're not good enough. Because why do we drink? To be more funny, to be more relaxed, to be more engaging, to be more sexy, whatever it is. Almost every time you drink, you're drinking from a place of being not enough. And if you're constantly sending your subconscious that message, how can you expect yourself to achieve at your highest possible level? When you take alcohol out of the system and you allow yourself the space to actually be in your full mental and spiritual and intellectual capacity, you are able to start achieving at a much higher level, and things will start to pop out of the woodwork that you never thought possible for you. And I'm talking, better, deeper, stronger friendships, more fulfilling, more aligned, more supportive romantic relationships, career opportunities, material abundance. All of these things just started to come to me at rapid rates. And this is reflected in my client results as well. Things that I can't even explain that become possible when you actually start showing up for yourself and align with the right metaphysical energy of the universe.
I never thought about like that you're subtly sending yourself this message that you're not enough, but it really makes sense. I was dating this guy. We went on maybe like 5 or 6 dates, and he was a drinker, but like the first date, he only had 1 drink. And then like the second date, he had 2 drinks. And then like the fourth date, he was having like 4 drinks. Now these were long dates, like 4 to 6 hours. But I actually started to develop a lot of concern about his drinking, and I realized that he had rules around his drinking. Like he didn't drink Monday through Tuesday, but Wednesday through Sunday, he drank. And for him, he basically was like, I love wine. Wine is my hobby, and I started to question him about it. Like, well, how many drinks do you actually consume in a week? More than 15, because for men, more than 15 drinks in a week is considered heavy drinking. It was so interesting because it was like every time I talked to him, I felt like I learned more about that he drank more than he said he did. And so I actually told him, like, I'm actually really concerned about your drinking. Like for me, like dating you, like this is a concern for me, and we decided to not keep dating because it was a concern for me. And what I realized is, wow, this guy, he would rather pick wine than dating me. Like, even though he was like, I'm super attracted to you, we're aligned spiritually, we have all these things, he wasn't like, you know what? Like, you're way more of a prize than alcohol. Like, if alcohol's making you uncomfortable, like, I don't need to do this. Like, I can give this up. He actually wanted to pick the alcohol more. And it was like kind of crazy for me to reflect on that. And like, do you find that people downplay their drinking or are in denial about it or mitigate it? Or like, what's that kind of dynamic that you see for people?
Oh, yeah. We've all created these really messed up narratives around alcohol, that it's a hobby, it's something we love, that we don't do it that often. And once you had to start creating rules about something in your life, that's usually something that you probably need to look at. Because if you've had to put yourself under some sort of rule system or restriction, I just think that it's something that and no judgment towards people who drink. I don't think that drinking is bad, wrong, immoral, or anything. But if you're wanting to live the life of your dreams, if you're wanting to live your most abundant, most successful, most healthy life, fact of the matter is alcohol just doesn't have a place in the picture. And so if you're trying to find a way to like squeeze it in and make it fit, it honestly just doesn't make sense. You're torturing yourself by trying to do that. And what I think is really interesting is this narrative we have specifically around wine, that it's so sophisticated and, that we love it. And I'll give you an illustration. I was talking to a client recently and she was getting ready to go on vacation in like the mountains. And she told me she was really worried because what she loved was just sitting out and watching the sunset and having her glass of wine. And I said, "Is it the wine you love?" And she said, yes. She was very adamant. And I said, "Well, it's not the sunset?" And she kind of got confused. And I said, what a big screw you that is to Mother Nature to say, you've given me this beautiful landscape. You've given me these people to enjoy. But I actually think that I'm going to dilute all of my senses that affect my ability to enjoy this thing because I'm going to convince myself that I love wine. And if you get down to it, it's not the wine you love about that experience. It's all of the other things, but you've convinced yourself that they go hand in hand, that you need one to enjoy the other, when really it's such an insult to a person, to someone you're trying to date, or to an experience you're trying to have, or someone you're even trying to have a conversation with, to say that you need wine for that experience to be enjoyable. Because guess what? If it's not enjoyable without alcohol, it's just not enjoyable, period. That's all there is to it.
I love that phrase. I had a client recently who has really cut back her drinking during her program with me this summer. She's working on getting more in shape for her wedding. And she messaged me and she's like, "Heather, I didn't drink this weekend. And I discovered that being around my friends who were drunk was actually really obnoxious and not fun." It was almost like she learned that the people that she thought she liked, maybe she only liked them if she was drunk.
Yeah, I think that is just a big revelation that we had. Not that you can't be friends with the same people and find common ways to hang out with them, but what you do when you drink is you make your mind stupid, and your mind craves intellectual stimulation. So if you're in a situation where everyone else is stupid because they're drinking and your mind is at full intellectual capacity, of course that's going to seem torturous. But what you're doing in turn by joining them is just dulling yourself down to their level. And I know that some of the terms I use are really harsh, but if you think about it in that way, you're not doing yourself or your friends any favors. It's actually quite insulting that I can't stand you, so I'm going to make myself stupid so that I can tolerate the behavior that you're exuding right now.
Totally. I love the way that you reframe things. It's so powerful. So we've kind of talked about some of the benefits of quitting alcohol that, we've already referenced, but I'd like to go a little bit deeper. So what are some of the benefits of quitting alcohol if you don't have alcohol dependence or addiction? From a health perspective, Coach, I'll just share a couple of the ones that I see, and then I want to hear what you see with your clients. But, much easier to lose belly fat. Belly fat just kind of melts off. Improved energy, hangovers, improved triglyceride levels, improved liver enzyme levels, things like that. So what are some of the benefits that you see with your clients?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I am not a health coach or a doctor. So the scientific part of it, I kind of go armchair expert style. But your body recovers so much more quickly when you don't have alcohol in your system. Obviously, you're not becoming dehydrated. Your muscles are just in a stronger condition. When I first stopped drinking, I was working out all the time, and not because I was on some sort of, crazy workout bender, but because I felt so good and my body was recovering at this rapid rate that it was craving this movement that I hadn't been able to fully engage in. But the interesting thing about alcohol is that your body doesn't know how to process it. So we have all of these cutesy little detox pills and drinks and cures that you can get at the checkout aisle to help you with your hangover. And those don't really do anything, nor do any of the little spritzer drinks you're getting that have, the like special vitamins in them, your body actually can't absorb vitamins if it's fighting off a foreign substance, a poison. So essentially you're wasting time trying to put any sort of vitamin and mineral in your body because your body is trying to process something that is confusing it. So on a physical level, you're just going to improve every area of your health so quickly because you're getting a toxin. It's lighter fluid that you're drinking. So you're getting a toxin out of your body, but I don't need to do the whole like DARE class lecture. The big things are that you are able to tackle things in your life that you were hiding from before. So I look at it like a metaphor of, if you've been swimming your whole life, let's say you never learned how to swim properly and you've been swimming your whole life with a life vest on. And that allows you to get in the water, but it only allows you to float on the surface. And as an adult, as a, 30-something, 40-something, 50-something, who are the ages of a lot of the ladies who I work with and probably yourself too, taking off that life vest that has helped you kind of just float by a little more easily is scary when you're an adult. Had you learned to swim when you were a kid and you're fearless and you have no sense of mortality, it's not that hard, but now you've built up a lifetime where you haven't flexed the muscle to build yourself social skills, self-esteem, self-regulation habits to get yourself out of anxiety, conversation skills. When you've always relied on alcohol to keep yourself afloat, it's going to seem really, really scary to take off that life vest, right? It is going to feel like it's sink or swim. And what I can promise you is that, will it be difficult? Yes, but you are going to learn to swim. And from that perspective, you don't have to skim the surface anymore. You can dive deep into life. You can experience life on such a deeper, richer, more beautiful level than you ever could have imagined because you took off the mechanism that was seemingly keeping you safe, but it was only keeping you on the surface. So, if you want to live a life beyond your wildest dreams, I think getting alcohol out of the picture is 100% going to take you there.
It is a toxin. And I think people have convinced themselves, even this guy that I, was dating, it's like, he's like, well, wine is good for you. Like there's a lot of health benefits to wine. And I'm like, actually the polyphenols in wine that are linked to like improve cardiovascular health are like, you can also find those in like berries, and like vegetables.
Yeah, that's the funny thing. We can convince ourselves that, a glass of this is good because of the antioxidants and whatever else. And no, if you wanted to go that route, you can absolutely 100% find all of those benefits in something else without the harmful side effects.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so let's talk about some of the biggest challenges that you see people face in quitting alcohol because, I work with clients who some of them really can struggle with alcohol. I tend not to bring them on as clients until they're ready to commit to having no more than 1 to 2 drinks max per week because honestly, nutrition won't work if you are drinking more than that. And you will just completely plateau. I think people really underestimate how alcohol impacts their physique and weight loss goals, just aside from like mental health and energetic goals. So I'd love to hear what you think are some of the biggest challenges that your clients face when they're quitting alcohol.
Yeah, I think the number one is little hope and prayer that we have that we can just cut back and that will be enough. And this isn't a pitch for quit drinking forever. Alcohol is bad. Everyone should quit drinking. But it is a pitch for giving yourself a really solid runway. And that looks like getting alcohol out of your system completely. So I'm going to say like 90 days, 90 to 100 days to give it a try versus what I tried to do, which is try to find a moderate relationship with it. And here's the thing. Gretchen Rubin, she's an author. She has this concept called moderators versus abstainers. And she posits that naturally, many of us are either abstainers, meaning we're all or nothing, meaning if we take something out of our life and say that it's an absolute no, we have no problem. But the second we try to say it's a sometimes maybe thing that we can have, it sometimes maybe turns into all the time. And then there are people who are naturally good at moderation. The thing is, if you are having to effort at moderation, you are probably not naturally good at it. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I would just say that there's freedom and restriction in this sense that if you just make a commitment to cut it out for a while and see how you feel, you will be astounded by the results. So I think the number one thing is that we try to make it work for us when often we're just working against ourselves and our own dispositions and the way that we work. The other things though are just fears about how people will perceive us. Will they think that we are an outcast? Will we be a social outcast? Will they think that we're an alcoholic? And that really takes a lot of work to overcome. You have to start testing the waters and bravely go into social situations where you feel uncomfortable. You might have to not engage in social situations that are going to make you feel very uncomfortable or tempt you. And I think that the last thing, though, is just our own ability to manage our emotions. And alcohol is something that we've used to stunt our emotional growth. So of course, it's going to seem overwhelming. Your pain, your terror, your anxiety, all of those things are going to seem more overwhelming. But the way that you've been soothing yourself with alcohol is fake, and it always makes it come back tenfold. Most of you listening, and Heather, I'm sure you've had the classic case of anxiety where you drink a little bit and then the next day you feel icky. You feel like you did something wrong. You feel like crawling out of your skin. So all of those things that you're trying to reduce with alcohol, they're always going to come back tenfold. And if you can take a break and actually learn to manage your emotions on your own, which there are super simple techniques. There's also, things like therapy and other resources, but there are so many simple techniques you can use to regulate your own nervous system that don't include alcohol. And once you figure that out, you will be a force to be reckoned with, because a very small percentage of our world knows how to do that, and it becomes a superpower.
I love that. Oh my gosh. Yes, it's going to be my new superpower. I actually feel that alcohol blocks and clouds my like claircognizance, like that. I have that gift of like knowing things. And those gifts are the clarity gifts, right? Like the claircognizance, the clairvoyance, they're literally clair means clarity. And I find that when I was drinking alcohol, it would muddy that clarity that I would experience. And now, not having alcohol in my system, I feel that I'm like much more clear in my thinking and my perception of others. Let's talk about social life, because I feel like this is one of the biggest challenges for my clients, right? A lot of my clients are super social. For example, I have a client who works in medical sales, and that world is very fixated on taking doctors out for happy hours, or the doctors will invite them out, for example. I have had clients who worked in tech, also a lot of happy hours in the tech industry, very male dominated, a lot of drinking in that industry. Clients, it's a birthday weekend, it's a bachelorette party, it's, watching a show with friends and we're drinking. How, can people start to navigate these social situations and be alcohol free?
Okay, that's actually such a good question. And before I answer that, I actually want to pause and comment on what you said about claircognizance, because I would imagine that you naturally, without knowing it, and maybe without your clients knowing it, probably attract a lot of people who are also energetically sensitive. So have like one of the claircognizance, clairaudience, clairvoyance, or identify as empaths or highly sensitive individuals. And what I will say for you, if that even sounds interesting and you don't know, look it up and see if the descriptions of those different energetic principles resonate with you. Because what I find is that a lot of women who are over drinkers, social drinkers, use it because at some point in their life, they've realized that they have some sort of energetic gift, but they haven't been taught to manage or handle it. And it makes you feel really weird. And so one way to numb that down, to quiet it down, as you found inadvertently, is to drink. So we don't know that we're doing it until we stop, and that energetic sensory, that extrasensory gift starts to come back to the surface. Now, this isn't saying that like, oh, we're all psychics underneath. I mean, you could be, who knows? But it's saying that you are able to tap into a sense of self-awareness and awareness of others that isn't available to you as a drinker. So I just also want to just show some tenderness for people who might be experiencing that, because it's actually really beautiful when you can let that come to the surface. And if that sounds even a bit like it's resonant with you, definitely go look up those things: claircognizance, clairaudience, just clairvoyance, any of the clairs, and take the quiz to see if you're an empath or if you're a highly sensitive person. It might make things make a lot more sense to you.
That's so helpful. And I actually discovered that with coffee too, that coffee was also a way for me to lower my positive energy when I was uncomfortable with my gift. Or it was almost like I could see things and I can see people so clearly when I'm off all substances, that sometimes it was like I was wanting to like muddy or like lower my gift. Do you have any tips for how people can learn to embody and tolerate ever increasing levels of positive energy?
Yes, it is. It's overwhelming, especially when we've been not taught to manage it, or maybe some of us have even been made to feel that it's wrong at some point in our lives, or that it's weird. And I think really coming to a meditative practice, that doesn't mean sitting in silence necessarily, but something that's meditative for you. So that could mean walking, but I would say walking in silence and listening to nature, doing breath work, doing a meditation. But you can find guided sources for all of this, but just learning to be in flow with your energy and the energy of the world around you rather than overstimulating yourself, right? Because coffee is a stimulant, alcohol is a depressant, but it's still like messing with that energetic threshold that you have.
Totally. Okay, so let's kind of go back to the social questions. So how do you help your clients navigate being social, but not drinking?
Work is one of the things you mentioned, which is a really hard one. And that's where you kind of have to have a place to put your foot down. Because if your work is making you feel like you have to drink to perform, I don't like that culture, right? And I know that a lot of places have kind of the traditional keg culture where we have this office happy hour, this office keg. And that's one thing because, hey, guess what? A lot of us don't have to go into the office anymore. But if you are happy to go out with clients, I'm going to give you some tips to get around it. But if you feel that you're being pressured by your boss to do that, you really, I would say, take a step back and evaluate, is this something I want to work? Is this a company I want to work for? Is this a job that I'm intended to have? And in social situations, I have two main rules. The first rule is you don't have to go to the party. And the party could mean a happy hour. It could mean an event. Unless it is something that is a once in a lifetime, like someone's wedding, I can promise you that your lack of presence is not going to ruin your social cachet. It's not going to make you a social outcast from that group. It's not going to make them stop inviting you. If you feel that you can't handle the energy of the party or the vibe of the party, just don't go. Stop trying to put yourself in situations that aren't the right vibe for you. Now, that doesn't mean that you should never go to a social event again. The second rule is you can always leave the party. So that means I want you to challenge yourself. I want you to challenge yourself to put yourself in situations that have you flex this new muscle, this new social skill of being sober. And my rules for going to the party, if you choose to go, number one, go early. I want you to get there as early as possible so that you maximize your sober time with everyone else's somewhat sober time. And when you feel the vibe start to shift, that can be your clue to leave. You don't have to stick it out. And I guarantee you, if you say, hey, I'm leaving and I'm actually not drinking, if anyone would like a ride, you're almost always going to have someone who's grateful to take you up on it. So you can make yourself useful in those instances as well, which sometimes can give you just a boost of, okay, I'm doing this for a reason. And the other option I always provide is I'm not a huge mocktail person. I'm super fine with sparkling water, but make sure that you have something in your hand to act as a deterrent to where people aren't asking you if you need a drink. Always have a decoy in your hand. That way you don't even have to talk about it. I think one of the hard things that we combat when we start changing this relationship is feeling like we need to tell people. And it's almost like we verbal vomit it out. Like it's so awkward. We just must tell everyone we're not drinking or must like tell this story. And you know what? People usually care less than you think. So I would say to test the waters every now and then and just don't tell anyone you're not drinking. I think it's valuable to go in with a script to say something like super easy. Hey, I'm actually not drinking right now. Thank you though. I'm good. But I also know that if you don't say anything, people are less likely to notice than you think, but we psych ourselves out about it. And so then we just spill out all of these things that we think we need to tell them. And your silence sometimes is just a-okay. So recap, those tips are, you don't have to go to the party. You can always leave the party, go early, have a script, and have a decoy beverage so that you don't even have to have people ask.
I love all those tips. And I especially love the one of leaving early and then offering to give someone else a ride because one, you're making the road safer. You know, you're potentially taking one less person off the road who might drive or get super drunk and then put themselves at risk or other people. And then I love the decoy thing as well. And I think it's valuable to have a drink that looks like an alcoholic drink. So one of the things I used to do was get like a Topo Chico, right? Or a sparkling water in a bottle, but that is obviously not an alcoholic drink. So one thing that I prefer to do now, and I like to tell my clients this, is get like a soda water and a lime in a like alcoholic cup, right? So it looks like a vodka soda, right? Or get a virgin mojito. And if you don't want the sugar, I even tell my clients to bring like their own stevia packet and like mix it in. So like get a drink that looks alcoholic so that people really don't know. And I love the idea of not telling people. Just go in and don't tell anybody and see if anybody even notices.
Yeah, I think that we psych ourselves out to think that we're going to be this, odd weirdo that has like a flag flying that says I'm not drinking right now. And sometimes the only way they see that flag is if you fly it yourself. So I love all of those alcohol-free options. And we're getting into a state of the world where a lot of places have alcohol-free beverages. So if you look at a menu beforehand, often you'll find that it's already there, ready for you. But if you're going to a private residence, you can always take something in advance. I often get there, I will get there very early and I'll just put my stash of whatever it is I'm drinking off to the side to where people don't get it confused. And that's fine. It's never been an issue for me. I've never had someone say, you can't bring that in here or anything like that. So just give yourself some bumpers, give yourself some extra advantages, build the system for yourself.
Yeah, totally. And I just discovered the world of like these hoppy seltzer waters. So like I just discovered the Lagunitas, like hop refresher, I think it's called. And I'm like obsessed with it because it's not only zero alcohol, but it's 0 calories, 0 sugar, 0 gluten. And it looks like an alcoholic beverage. The bottle, it tastes hoppy. It tastes something different than just sparkling water. And I was like so excited to find those. I also encourage people to go and look in the non-alcoholic section in their stores. I did that the other day at the grocery store and I was introduced to a non-alcoholic wine. She did say it wasn't the tastiest, but there was a non-alcoholic wine, a non-alcoholic Prosecco, and then all of these non-alcoholic beers and seltzer waters. So there's so many options out there if you want to buy something that looks alcoholic, but it's not.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm a big fan of kombucha. I also think that if you get the right flavor, sometimes it can mimic one of your favorite like fruity beverages. I have one that I like that kind of tastes like a margarita to me. And on those days that it's hot and I kind of get that emotional feeling of this is a day I would have had a margarita, I just go grab that kombucha and have it in a glass. And it's perfectly satisfying, and even more because I don't feel like crap afterwards.
Do you know what brand that is? Because like now
Yes.
you're going to try it.
So it's called Salty Dog and it's by Cosmic Kombucha, which is in Austin. So in Austin in the Texas area, but it is my absolute favorite. I wish they would sponsor my life. If you're out there, Cosmic Kombucha, I'm here waiting for you.
I love it. Salty Dog. It even sounds kind of like an alcoholic beverage.
Yeah. Salty Dog actually is a grapefruit and vodka, right? I think.
Oh,
but for me, it reads as a margarita. So I just envision it as such.
I love that. Okay. Well, this has been so valuable. So how can people work with you? What services do you offer to the woman who wants a lot of support or some support or knowledge about going alcohol free?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, here's some really easy ways. If you're sensing that alcohol is holding you back, but you're really not quite sure how to pinpoint how, I have a free quiz on my website, amandakuda.com/quiz. And that's Amanda, then Kuda is my last name. And you can find me there on the internet or at Amanda Kuda on Instagram. And I provide one-on-one coaching services. That's my primary offering. Just because I find that when you're trying to transition a behavior and a lifestyle, it's really, really great to have someone give you custom support. And it's really my passion, what I'm great at doing. And so if that sounds like you, I would love to have a conversation with you, if nothing else.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I know that this just has like validated and helped me affirm my own decision to stay alcohol free, also given me better language to navigate this world of, I don't need to call myself sober. I can say I'm just alcohol free and support my clients with this. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. I'd love to connect with you more. So follow me on Instagram at Heather McConaughey and send me a message saying hello. If you loved today's episode, please rate and review the podcast so I can reach and help more women. Remember, when you prioritize self-care, everyone wins.